Hello and welcome back to the channel for another Doctor Who video and another Doctor Who 60th anniversary themed video. I recently covered the filming which took place over the past week, and you can catch that video on the channel if you haven't already. But today we're going to be sort of spinning off that video a little bit and discussing a possible theory that would explain how David Tennant is back and why he has the TARDIS he has, and etc, etc. Basically just what's going on, namely the fact that he could be playing the Meta-Crisis Doctor as opposed to the 10th Doctor or the 14th Doctor or anything else. So this is a theory that a few people have suggested to me, including in the comments of that filming update video that I did recently, so I thought it did sort of merit a bit of a discussion and a debate as to whether it could be true and valid or not really. It's not something which occurred to me straight away when the news broke about Tennant and Tate coming back, I will admit. But it is something that, we can't rule out for certain, that David Tennant could be playing the Meta-Crisis Doctor this time round. As I say, it would explain certain things, potentially. But first of all, a quick recap. So who was the Meta-Crisis Doctor? Well, for this we have to go back to the Series 4 finale, The Stolen Earth and Journey's End, which of course aired in 2008. And the cliffhanger for the first part of that story did of course see the 10th Doctor begin to regenerate after being exterminated by a Dalek. He got out of that particular scrape by siphoning off the regeneration energy into his spare severed hand, which Donna then touched when the TARDIS was set into the heart of the Crucible to be destroyed or whatever. And that resulted in the creation of the Meta-Crisis Doctor, so this double duplicate, doppelganger, whatever you want to call it, of the 10th Doctor, who looks like him and lives and breathes like him and everything else, but only has one heart, and so, to all intents and purposes, is human. And of course, at the story's end, the Meta-Crisis Doctor went off with Rose to the parallel universe, or Pete's world, or whatever you want to call it, to basically go and live there with her and live out like a normal human lifespan and age with her and all that sort of stuff. So that's the crucial thing about the Meta-Crisis Doctor, he is, to all intents and purposes, still out there, like I say, he does age, which, actually could work in David Tennant's favour if he was playing the Meta-Crisis Doctor, because it would explain why David Tennant himself looks a bit older than he did when he was actually playing the actual 10th Doctor. But yes, for years fans have speculated about the fate of this Doctor and what he got up to and whether he could return to the main show at any point. I think he has actually appeared in one or two Big Finish productions, but not full-on audio dramas. I think just in the short trips range, which are narrated stories, so they haven't actually starred David Tennant himself. But those stories have nevertheless sort of expanded on the mythos of this Doctor a little bit and basically told us what he's getting up to. So the big question is, could David Tennant be playing the Meta-Crisis Doctor this time round? Because obviously we've seen him, at the Camden filming with a different coat, with Jodie's TARDIS, with a new sonic screwdriver, all this mad stuff going on. And of course also Donna is going to be in this story as well, and her family. And she was integral to this whole thing. She was basically responsible for the fact that this Doctor even exists. And in turn, the very fact of the Meta-Crisis Doctor coming into being and of her touching the Doctor's hand is what then forced the Doctor to erase Donna's memory and for her to stop travelling in the TARDIS. So, all these things are quite intertwined. And you could use that to explain why he has, well, certainly a different sonic screwdriver and a different outfit, but also a different TARDIS. Because there was actually a deleted scene which didn't make it into the final edit of Journey's End, which saw the 10th Doctor give the Meta-Crisis Doctor a little piece of coral or something from which to build his own TARDIS. Well, from which to grow his own TARDIS, I should say. But yes, okay, that didn't make it onto TV. I don't know whether Big Finish have touched on it at all or contradicted it or anything like that. But if we assume that is canon and the Meta-Crisis Doctor does have his own TARDIS, and if we look at this, economically and practically as well, from behind-the-scenes production perspective, they could conceivably get away with using Jodie's TARDIS prop, rather than having to make a new one as the Meta-Crisis Doctor's TARDIS, because we've never seen it before. We don't know what it looks like. It could look like anything. So they could get away with, reusing a prop rather than having to make a new one. And that would make sense. Or maybe you could play around with that idea and sort of say that, the Meta-Crisis Doctor and his TARDIS have been evolving alongside, the Doctor and TARDIS of our own universe. And so, the Meta-Crisis Doctor's TARDIS has sort of been changing its appearance in tandem with our universe's Doctor's own. So that would all make sense. And I think this is something which fans in particular would probably quite like to see. But there's also a part of me that thinks about it from the perspective of, you know, someone who is a real fan of, you know, the David Tennant era and is really looking forward to seeing David Tennant again as the 10th Doctor. You know, if they pulled something like this out of the bag, that might then, you know, from a certain perspective, be a bit disappointing and not quite deliver on that front. And I think as well, you know, from a more casual viewer's perspective and thinking about it in that sense, you know, are they really going to play upon this plot point from like 15 years ago or whatever, you know, at the expense of people perhaps not quite understanding what's going on or why there's this other 10th Doctor or whatever, or, you know, not remembering? I mean, yes, you know, Stolen Earth, Journey's End is one of the most viewed Doctor Who episodes ever, I believe. And so, yeah, you know, in theory, a lot of people saw that cliffhanger. And so a lot of people, you know, in theory, do know what the Meta Crisis Doctor is. But even so, it's a bit of a niche thing, really, I think, outside of, like, fan circles. So, I'm not quite sure, you know, from that perspective, whether they'd want to take that risk, you know, playing on this, you know, piece of continuity from all these years ago. But I suppose the counter-argument to that would be, you know, if David Tennant is playing the 14th Doctor or some in-between transitional incarnation of the Doctor between Jodie and Ncuti, a similar sort of argument applies. You could sort of say, well, that's going to confuse people because it's not the 10th Doctor we know and love. So, you know, whatever happens, based on the information we know, it looks like we're not actually getting 10th Doctor that we know and love and remember. We're going to get some sort of spin on that idea, some sort of alternate incarnation or, you know, Meta Crisis or whatever, you know. So I guess what I'm saying is the Meta Crisis theory is basically as likely or unlikely as any of the other theories going around at the moment. I mean, yes, you know, speaking as a fan, I would absolutely like to see the Meta Crisis Doctor again. I guess you'd have to bring Billie Piper back as Rose as well, which is another thing to say. I mean, God, there's been so many people misunderstanding the whole press release about Yasmin Finney recently and thinking, oh no, they've recast Rose Tyler, but that's not what's happened. I guess, you know, there is still a chance that Billie Piper could be in this special or series of specials or whatever. So, you know, basically nothing is off the table at this stage. And like I say, I think this theory, you know, it could end up being true. It's definitely one that's worth discussing and debating, I think, because there are some interesting possibilities that could come out of this idea. But yeah, I guess if there is one reservation I would have, is that it is a bit niche in terms of like a more general view of Doctor Who. You know, it's not something particularly that I think, you know, people would be interested in exploring it in any more detail or remember from when it first happened. So yeah, I don't know. Double-edged sword, you know, mixed feelings about it. I mean, personally, it's not the theory that I would have jumped to straight away, and indeed I didn't jump to it straight away, and like I say, when the news came out, it wasn't my first thoughts. But equally, you know, it could happen. I'm not ruling it out at this stage. So that's my views. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of this, whether you think it's a load of rubbish or whether you think it has weight or, you know, somewhere in between. Let me know all your theories and stuff. There were some great theories in the comment section of my filming update video about this and other stuff as well. So keep that coming. I'd love to hear what you've got to say. Please do give this video a like if you have enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. And if you want to go one step further, the link to my Patreon page is in the video description. And I'll see you very soon for lots more Doctor Who and Doctor Who 60th anniversary themed videos. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye for now.